And we are back with former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers and the MAGA intellectual Oren Cass. Oren, let me ask you a question, but I want to show you one more graph, which is manufacturing share of U.S. employment since basically 1940. And as you well know, it's basically a straight slope down from about 1950. And in fact, the slope is pretty standard. I mean, you can't find NAFTA on it. You can't find China WTO. It just keeps going down from about 30% of U.S. employment to about 8% now. So when you say you're going to look out for the working class, 80% of the middle class, 80% of Americans work in services, 8% work in manufacturing. Aren't your policies taxing most of the middle class to subsidize this very small and shrinking part of the middle class, which is the factory worker? Why is that a good deal for the middle class?
Well, Fareed, you and I both know that that's not the relevant chart to look at. There's nobody who cares about manufacturing employment as a share of total employment. Of course, that's going to decline over time. I'm surprised, actually, I'm not at all surprised you didn't put up the chart that matters, which is actual manufacturing employment. And if you'd put that chart up, what you'd see is that we stayed in a very steady band between about 17 million jobs and 19 million jobs from the 1950s all the way up through the year 2000. We stayed in that band through all of the technological progress, all of the automation. What we were getting were more
but Oren,
and
that's
better
a decline
jobs in
since the population. The population grows, so that's a potential.
You showed your chart. Fareed, you showed your chart. Let me answer the question. What we see after the year 2000 is a collapse in the number of manufacturing jobs, a sharp, frankly, unprecedented collapse that devastated communities across the country. And it's not just about the jobs in the factories. If we had highly productive jobs in factories, didn't have as many people working in the factories, but they were anchoring local economies, they were anchoring supply chains, they were providing better jobs in those towns in services, I think that would be a terrific outcome. That's exactly the outcome we should be looking for. In fact, when the Cato Institute, the very libertarian organization, made a short film about free trade showing how it could work, they showed a community devastated by NAFTA. And then you know how it came back? Because a new manufacturing plant came into town. Not because everybody was working in the plant, but as they showed, because even the pizza place in town did better when the factory was back. And so that's what we care about. That's what economists who are actually debating this issue are grappling with. Does making things matter? Do we care that we have a strong industrial sector? And if the answer is yes, then you have to be very worried about this. And the problem is that too many economists, I believe Larry is among them, says the answer is no, making things just doesn't matter anymore. And I think that's wrong.
Okay, Larry, let me ask you to respond to that, but also respond to the argument that people make, you've heard it many times, that at least this got all kinds of countries to the negotiating table, that Trump, by using this perhaps blunderbuss, perhaps too extreme version, got countries to negotiate.
So Fareed, look, on manufacturing, the first most important thing to say is that the 8% number is misleading. It's really about 4% are working in production in manufacturing. The rest of the people are in marketing or accounting or all that. So it's really a very small and dwindling share. I see Oren's point. We could debate the exact merits about just how much manufacturing and how important it is to get more manufacturing. Here's the thing. The Trump program is completely ill-conceived for the objective. Take, for example, the focus on steel tariffs. There are 50 times more people who work in industries that use steel that are made less competitive than there are who work in the steel industry. When we stop imports, we make all the inputs to our export industries more expensive and make our export industries less competitive. There are important things to do for manufacturing. For example, semiconductors are probably the most sensitive industry in the world, and this administration has destroyed the CHIPS program, which was investing in building capacity in manufacturing. So let's assume that we want to support manufacturing. There is no reason to believe that this program will be other than counterproductive, especially since it especially burdens our manufacturing teammates, Canada and Mexico, from its design. With respect to getting people attention, look, Fareed, if you punch your erstwhile friend in the face, you will get their attention. They might even suck up to you a little bit for a little while so you don't do it again. But you will have lost a friend for a very long time. You will have driven them into the arms of your adversaries, and I don't think you'll end up getting better deals from them. There is a winner in what's being pursued. I'm sorry to say it, but the person who has a really artful deal here is Xi Jinping and China, who is seeing scope for influence, scope for new markets, scope to displace the United States of a kind they could not have imagined as a result of the policies that we are pursuing. So yeah, we can have an argument, and it's a discussion Oren and I can have about the importance of manufacturing, but that's not the issue with the Trump program.